Go right ahead.
Thank you. Madam Chair and members, international child abduction is a serious and growing problem that continues to harm parents and their children. In 2010, the U.S. State Department reported 2,488 children were abducted to other countries from the United States. In 2011, according to the local district attorney's office, 60 parental abduction cases involving 84 children were opened in Orange County alone. In response to this, I have introduced SB 1206, or case law, to help further prevent or deter international abductions here in California by building on the existing framework. SB 1206 would restrain the parties involved in a custody dispute from applying for a new or replacement passports for their child or children. It would also direct the courts to contact the U.S. Office of Children's Issues and place the names of the child or children in the Prevent Departure and Child Passport Issuance Alert programs of the U.S. Department of State if an abduction risk is determined and certain criteria are met. And by the way, that's the amendment we're taking out. Finally, if an abduction takes place, the bill would allow the protective custody warrant to contain a freeze on the California assets of the party alleged to be in possession of the child. As a mother of 4, I can only imagine the pain of having my children taken away from me. No parent or child should experience the turmoil felt by such unconscionable actions. In addition, the committee noted several recommended actions that essentially address the concerns of the Judicial Council. While I believe that prevention of child abductions may require greater assistance to parents, I recognize the fiscal condition of our state and will accept the suggested amendments as author amendments. I will now turn it over to two gentlemen of Left Behind Parents who have come to briefly share their stories and support the bill.
Thank you. And I do want to note, I believe, if I'm incorrect, somebody can correct me, but I believe that the opposition has been removed with the taking of these amendments.
That's my understanding.
Great. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, Madam Chair. My name is Randy Collins. Thank you for taking up our issue. On March 3rd, 2003, at 3:03 p.m., my son Keisuke was born, who the bill was named after. After years of a marriage that wasn't working, we decided to file for a divorce. And in the immediate summons, the court rendered that none of us were to take my son out of Orange County, out of California, or out of the country. Through the investigations of the divorce, found out that my soon-to-be ex-wife had embezzled over $200,000 from our accounts. And on June 13th, the judge issued an order that my son's passports were to be turned over. Wrongly, he suggested that they were to be turned over to the Japanese consulate. This is the problem that we have, where the justices, quite frankly, don't know where to go with the passports, and they're not giving us anywhere to send them. That was on June 13th, 2008. On June 15th, Father's Day, was the last day I got to see my son. We went to church because he wanted to see my pastor. We went to lunch. We went to the Discovery Zone for him to play with the dinosaurs because that was his favorite thing to do. The next day, he was gone. She had fled the country because she didn't turn over the passports. There was no enforcement of the passport. I haven't seen or heard from my son in almost 4 years. I don't know what he's thinking. It's a little over a year ago since the tsunami and the earthquakes. I do know he's somewhere in Yosokaido, which is about 150 miles away from the devastation. The nuclear fallout is tremendous. But I did everything that my government told me I was supposed to do to protect my son. I did everything that the courts told me to do to protect my son. Nobody protected my son. And Japan is the second leading offender of international parental abductions in the world. No child has ever been returned. Not one. And although the State Department says there's 370 some odd children who have been abducted in active cases, we know that number to be well over 10,000. And we currently have a bill that we have worked with our organizations called BAC Home, Bring Abducted Children Home. We have a bill in the House of Representatives, H.R. 1940, the Sean and David Goldman International International Child Abduction Prevention and Recovery Act. And that's going to establish laws that will help us to try to return our children. But we need parameters to prevent children from being abducted. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read a quick thing. There's a one by the name of Patricia Appy. She's a leading expert on international parental abductions in the world. The State Department uses her. The military uses her to help with this issue. And in a committee hearing with the Foreign Affairs Committee, he said, in order to prevent parental abductions, families, mediators, lawyers, and judges must be in position to evaluate the potential risk of abduction by accurately evaluating the obstacles to recovery found in a given country where a wrongful removal or retention is occurred. We need to do this from the state level. We need to protect us. There's thousands of us. There's tens of thousands of family members who are not going to see their children. My son just had his 9th birthday. I haven't seen him since he was 5. His grandmother has not seen him. He's got cousins, aunts, and uncles who may never see him again. And the only way it's not going to be a cure-all, but we need the barriers and the parameters to protect them. There's nothing more important than our children. And just think about it for one moment, for any of you who are parents. Imagine that tomorrow your child's going to be abducted. What would you do today to prevent that from happening tomorrow? What steps would you take?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really sorry for your situation. I hope you can get it resolved, and I appreciate your testimony here.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Morehouse. I'm also with Bring Abducted Children Home, and I am the father of a boy that was kidnapped to Japan nearly 2 years ago. In May 2007, I was granted primary custody of my son in the state of Washington. On Father's Day 2010, I dropped my son Mochi off to begin a week-long visit with my ex-wife, his mother. He was 6.5 years old. This is where the endless nightmare begins. 6 days later, I received a phone call that no parent wants to receive. It was the police. They informed me that my son and my ex-wife had been reported missing. But I knew immediately what had happened, and she had succeeded in what she had threatened to do. She had kidnapped our son to Japan. In that moment, my life was shattered. My days became consumed with dealing with local law enforcement, the U.S. Department of State, Japanese consular officials, and anything I could think of to find my little boy. And the harsh reality is that the government of Japan has never returned any of the 374 American children kidnapped off of U.S. soil since 1994. And the number Randy referred to, the 10,000 in Japan, those are numbers based on statistical analysis of American citizen children that have been cut off from their parent within the country of Japan. Now, how could this happen to my child? I did everything I could possibly to prevent this. There were travel restraints. There was a court order barring her from traveling outside of the state of Washington. Well, restraints are only effective when one chooses to abide by them. For someone intent on committing international parental child abduction, restraints offer true little power. Entering a child into the Prevent Departure program, combined with surrendering passports, can stop future abductions from happening. And as I understood, there were some concerns about additional costs of including preventative measures such as this. However, from my own personal experience, there were substantial public costs involved after my son was abducted. There were investigations involving 2 jurisdictions, multiple police officers and detectives, hours of phone calls between myself and them, volumes of paperwork, time spent by the prosecutor, criminal court costs, and additional family court time, which spanned over a 4-month period as a result of the kidnapping. Some people say to me that at least you know your child is safe and with his mother. Currently, I still don't know where my son is. He may be somewhere in Japan with her. That's where the plane went. But he's not safe. He's at risk from the earthquakes in Japan, from the ongoing nuclear radiation crisis, and to being subjected to parental alienation syndrome by his mother. She's willingly and intentionally abducted him to a foreign country with the intent of alienating me from him and him from everything he knows. If you imagine being a child and your mother steals you away to a foreign world and then tells you that your father does not want you anymore, or that he's dead. Your whole life is now built on a foundation of lies. This is not what a healthy, nurturing parent does. This is a form of ongoing child abuse. Now, every morning I wake up twice. The first time I rush out of bed and get prepared to get him ready for school, and I can hear his voice in my head, and I hear him say, "Daddy, can I have some toast and honey for breakfast?" And then my heart skips a beat. And then I really wake up and I realize he's still missing. And the ongoing nightmare continues. The last time I held his hand, the last time I heard his voice was on Father's Day, 2010. And I'm still spending every day trying to locate my son. I flew in this morning from Washington, D.C., where I met with 10 different congressional staff members from congressmen and women and senators on this particular issue. And I'm here today to ask you to save future families from this ordeal. Protect the children of California from being victims of international child abduction. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Again, our deepest sympathies. And thank you both for sharing your testimony.